Jodi Arias reminds many people of another infamous defendant, of course, Casey Anthony. Marcia, are these cases similar?
Well, I think I agree with Mark Eiglash in that, yes, you have a beautiful shell. You have a very pretty girl accused of a very heinous crime, and the two don't fit together. You know, people see that, and it's not what they expect. A beautiful girl murdering her child, a beautiful girl hideously, gruesomely killing her boyfriend or ex-boyfriend. This is something that grabs the attention and certainly grabs the imagination of the viewing public. But in terms of the outcome, I don't think it's going to be the same.
And no baby involved either.
There's no baby involved.
And that actually might have gone against her, to tell you the truth. I mean, that's kind of, you know, hurting a baby is something totally unforgivable. Yeah. But they have a totally different setup here in terms of the evidence. She's admitting she did this.
Jeannie,
so you're starting with that already, and Casey Anthony never did. So in terms of the evidence and the way it's setting up, I don't see that being the same.
Well, out of the gate today, we see similarities with Casey Anthony and with Jodi. How do we see them? We see Jodi just before the police officer goes up to testify. She takes her left side of her hair and she starts pulling it towards her face. Her hair's in front of her face. We call this, in my world, detecting deception world, imploding. She's imploding. She's starting to disappear just before the police officer disappears. Who did this? Casey Anthony, right out of the gate in the beginning of her trial when she was, you know, a little less cocky. Halfway through, she got cocky. We'd see Casey Anthony constantly playing with her mousy bangs, constantly pulling him in front. We see it here. What does this mean? This means right now there's not a lot of confidence going on for her. We see it at home when we watch it, and we know that her outcome does not look good so far, and she knows it too.
And listen, Gene, I want to bring something else up too. I mentioned the sort of model of thinking of love addiction, and people get obsessed with somebody, and we have teenager kind of obsessions. I think we're all kind of familiar with those sorts of things. But adults can get involved in these severe obsessions where they can actually start stalking people. You know, people talk about parking their car outside of somebody's house and watching. Again, teenagers do this stuff. We joke about it. It's seriously pathological behavior, and it can go even to a psychotic stalking. And in that case, again, unbelievably violent behavior could develop, couldn't it?
Dr. Drew, I had this happen to one of my family members, a close family member. Her and her husband were separated. He rented a car, stalked her and their baby together. When they pulled up into a parking spot, he hit them at 65 miles an hour, and it can result in a dangerous situation. You have to take stalking seriously because it could literally end up in murder, like it did in this case with Jodi.
Greg in Pennsylvania. Greg?
Yes, from what I've been watching all day about this, I just wanted to know, is anybody else out there think that this girl was fatally attracted to Travis?
Greg, that's what we were just talking about, that's sort of that phenomenon. But again, you know, to sort of, you take that apart, I would think, in the courtroom, the defense attorneys, because that's sort of telling a story. It's possibly true, but to come up with a really concrete bit of evidence,
when you come back, I'm going to go back to what you were saying before. The brutality and what they're going to hang their hat on is this. They've delved into it in the opening. They're going to stick with this Mormonism, the sins, the anal sex, and everything else, and they're going to build from there. That's what's going to be. That's going to be the pivot point, if you will, of what the defense is doing.
Mark Eiglash, you agree with that? Yeah.
Yes. The main difference, though, between this and Casey Anthony is the jurors and Casey Anthony says we didn't know how it happened. We couldn't decide whether it was first, second, or manslaughter because we didn't know exactly how it took place. Here, very different. The evidence is overwhelming.
It's very obvious how it happened. Go ahead, Janine.
And Dr. Drew. Yeah. Dr. Drew, well, Casey Anthony had friends. You know, she even had an ex-boyfriend take the stand and say, yeah, she was a good mother. You know, this woman, from what we hear so far in the case, she's not going to have a lot of people as character witnesses to say she's a good person. We actually have the opposite here than what we had for Casey Anthony.
Yeah, but you know what she will have? You know what she will have that Casey Anthony did not wind up having? Is someone like you, Dr. Drew. That's what she's going to have on her side, as Mark Garagos was pointing out. And it is definitely the ace in the hole for the defense. She doesn't have to take the witness stand. You get a doctor up there to make her human and to say, oh, my God, he pushed every button. He deliberately tortured her. He put her through such mental anguish. She could no longer withstand, blah, 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 blah. You can see the way that one will unfold. And someone like you could really be impressive to a jury who says, I don't get how anybody could have done this. This is an unbelievable crime. She's done nothing in her past that ever fits this. So he must have done something to provoke her. And an expert who is as engaging as you are could really sway the jury.
Mark agrees.
Marcia's spot on. That's exactly that's the only place, frankly, that the defense can go, number one. And number two, it really kind of plays into this narrative, because the narrative is everybody sits here. You're going to sit here 29 times, and then the gun, and everybody's going to do the same thing in their head. How the heck can this woman, as you're looking at her, it seems incomprehensible to people who don't.
But that to me, that makes. Do you know who they're going to? Have they lined those guys up yet?
Yeah,
it's all lined up. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
Okay, that'll be interesting.
Listen, Dr. Drew.
Yeah, Janine.
Dr. Drew. She's lied 3 times. We have the lies 3 times. The evidence is stacked up against her. I don't care what the defense is going to do. At the end of the day, a murderer is a murderer is a murderer. If she walks like a duck, she looks like a duck, and smells like a duck, it's a duck, and it is stacked up against her. I don't think it's going to be enough to say Casanova.
Wait, Janine, remember something. She's on trial for a death penalty here.
Yeah.
This is
they went all the way to the mat with this.
Yeah. You could be, and a lot of times they're working. They're reverse engineering. They may not be worried about the guilt phase. They're designing all of this with an idea towards saving her life.
But isn't this someone went wrong with Casey Anthony? The state went too far with what they were trying to get.
Yes, but this is not the same case.
This
is not the same.
This is different, Drew. This is
the only thing that's similar between these two is you've got 2 hot women.
And cruel.
Okay, thanks,
and
Mark.
Marsha hits the nail on the head. We know exactly how this guy was murdered. This adorable kid. So I don't think it's as easy as the defense team or people that are on the defense team side are going to think that it is. I think the nonverbals are going to add up. I think her statements are going to add up. And I think at the end of the day, she's going to be found guilty of murder.
Nobody is arguing that. Nobody is arguing that and saying this is easy or this is an easy defense.
Let's put it that way.
Okay, well, good.
I won't be surprised if she gets the death penalty. How do you like that?